on the soil below. Ancient memories call where the rivers flow.
Focusing on Vibe Up Against Child Abuse initiative on traditional Aboriginal teachings and drumming as a powerful way to advocate for Indigenous family rights and healing by leveraging the framework, the legal framework of Bill C-92. We start with the foundation. The drum as a heartbeat of rights. The drum represents the universal heartbeat and the first sound heard in the mother's womb, and from the mother's heartbeat. It's cultural connection. The drum is a tool for healing and recreating that initial bond between mother and child. There's nothing more intimate and closely connected through all development of a beautiful child inside a mother's tummy. And we hope that the development of every child is in a loving, non-abrasive development time. Bill C-92, education. We want to use the rhythm of the drum to pace educational segments about C-92 and act respecting First Nations, Inuit, Métis children, youth, and families. Bill C-92 is a law that affirms Indigenous jurisdiction over children and family services. It's a powerful bill, and when brought into a legal situation for families, for grandparents, which is my focus, focusing on how grandparents can utilize Bill C-92 in their presentation with the judge and in presenting their case to protect a child. So grandparents' rights. We want to emphasize that under traditional laws now recognized by Bill C-92, parents are central keepers, but the grandparents become even more central keepers of custody or customary practices and protectors of the community, which by Aboriginal, or as spoken of these days in the context of Indigenous, the Indigenous grandparents in most cases are the last of the knowledge keepers of tradition before, well, after the colonial transformation took place, religion and governing systems. But the bill was brought in and strongly mandated for presentations to judges in provincial court situations and cases, as well as federal cases. So this is really important for grandparents to understand that they have a lot more power. I don't want to use that word overbearingly, but really in this situation in protecting grandchildren and keeping them active in the grandparents' lives for the sharing of traditions and wisdom from their Indigenous cultures, that this power, so to speak, this voice from the federal mandates as a federal law in Bill C-92 is to be focused on, especially if you have legal representation, that your lawyers of course, focus on this bill because it is the greatest established legal protection for grandchildren in this day and age at this time. Number 2 in this family healing journey, avoiding the court system. The path of tradition. Your videos can demonstrate, and now I'm speaking as far as if you're doing educational videos to teach about this, which is what I'm doing. The traditional practices act as protective factors that can be incorporated into teaching videos for education. And I'm using my research to be able to teach these protective factors to you. And you can do the same as I'm doing and personalize it in your own community or in your own personal way. Now, these protective factors that can keep families out of the Western legal system. Collective responsibility. We feature teachings on how child rearing is a community-wide responsibility, where extended family and elders provide the network of relational bonds, and this is very necessary for a child's safety and keeping them comfortable and safe in their home environment, and giving them a safe escape, so to speak, a safe environment that they can legally be placed in the care of the grandparents to keep them safe from any negative activities in their homes, no matter where their homes are, whether it's on the tribal reservations or whether it's off the reservation. Bill C-92's, it stands strong in both situations. Alternative dispute resolution. This is led by matriarchs and knowledge keepers, the wise elders. And they can resolve family crises through restoring balance and harmony rather than as an adversary in litigation. So to be able to communicate through the elders is so important for the family unit. And this is how the tribal systems have worked, not just in our country or in our province here, but worldwide. The tribal system has been and was the original foundation of family. And so the grandparents were respected for their knowledge, whereas at this time it's unfortunate that we've seen colonial transformations in that and breaking it down and breaking apart the tribal system and access to the wisdom and practicing the traditions. But this is coming back very strong at this time, so it's important that we look at other alternatives other than going to court. So cultural safety. This is the highlight, again, of Bill C-92. And when tribes can tailor their own services, and they can incorporate their traditional healers, elders, wisdom keepers, knowledge keepers, matriarchs, who address the specific needs of the family before the state or before the province intervenes. So looking at the importance of cultural safety, again, it comes back to how does the tribal system work to protect the children and take them into a safe environment on that or in that community. So the traditions that we speak of as cultural safety would be those teachings that are connected to the language, connected to ceremonial practices like drum dancing, drumming, singing, practicing their traditional languages, which is so important to keep them connected as well, because there's a lot of vibrational and mental connections into the songs and the stories that relate to the children's and the grandchildren's ancestral roots. So everything that is spoken, the spoken word, when we think of how, in my cousin Calvin Helene's book, The Dances with Dependency, he teaches in there about how this connection to the tribal system was focused on years ago by the colonial state to break down that cultural safety and break it apart, so there wasn't any of that kind of ancestral protection. So cultural safety is really key in all of this, because it stands out as the child's connection to his origins through ancestral roots. So going into phase 3, systematic navigation through the legal system to support. If the legal system is unavoidable, your content of your proceedings can guide your families through it with a focus on substantive equality. So, first point is the roadmap. We create a step-by-step visual series, or have a visual presentation showing visually how to transition from provincial and territorial law to First Nations law under Bill C-92. So being connected to your Indigenous community is also important, or elders from a community that you might be associating with. As for myself, I work with the Qualicum Band on Vancouver Island, and I work with the matriarch teacher there, the hereditary matriarch, and she's been teaching me for over 15, probably 20 years now. So that roadmap will tie into this whole transition and show how this connection to provincial and territorial law through Bill C-92 can, again, help guide you through whatever legal process that you're going through or preparing to go into. The next point is the coordination agreements. The importance of coordination agreements, which aim to secure long-term or sustainable outcomes for children within their own communities. So looking at how important the agreements are for the long-term care of a child, and looking at all the different things that you can do for them and with them in their community helps to keep them grounded again in a larger tribal family system, and makes it easier to have a broader support system. And not always easy, because again, what community is balanced these days? And the unfortunate thing is, we see even in most of the Indigenous communities where now we have, used to be more alcohol problems, and now we see on reserve marijuana and dispensaries that pertain to marijuana and THC usage. So that's really causing another internal breakdown in the strength of the community as a whole, and being healthy and well and clear-minded. So the kinship care priority is the next point. And the kinship care priority is to advocate for kinship care, reinforcing that maintaining a child's connection to their culture is a legal right that improves overall welfare outcomes, and basically speaks for itself in the sense that their connections are strong through well-communicated connectivity to the grandparents. And of course, if the grandparents are not well versed in their culture, because there's been such a big gap in between practicing, that there are now ways to teach even the Indigenous elders that are wanting to be more culturally active. And they can come to my site for this YouTube channel, and Vibing Up, or it's called at Vibe Up Against Child Abuse, or they can go to my at Vibe Up Beats 888, or they can go to my website, which is vibeup.ca. And I'm going to offer a lot of support information for grandparents on all of those outlets. So looking at understanding your rights and understanding your power through Bill C-92, this is something that will also give you a lot more confidence in how you can proceed to protect your grandchildren, but also giving you the cultural foundation teachings through learning about drumming and the health benefits and the cultural connectivity and the ancestral connection through that type of vibrational ceremonial activity. And you can bring that comfortably into your life through your own traditional songs. And I'll also be teaching how you can learn how to make your own songs through these wonderful AI programs. Don't be afraid of AI. There's good and there's bad, but the good is more powerful than the bad. And you can use what I use for my music teaching programs. It's a beautiful program called Suno, and it teaches, or you can put your words in there, you can put your traditional teachings in there and your language, and you can use that to teach and learn from. And playing your drums, don't have to have drums, you can use rattles, you can use anything to create a vibration, even your body. So more teachings there. Getting back to number 4, which is healing modalities, again tying into what I'm teaching on those programs or on those sites about rebuilding the family root system. So when we do that vibrationally, it's an all-encompassing experience. It's an all-encompassing power of vibration and connectivity, not only to who we are inside, but what our ancestral teachings are about drum vibration, songs, and lifestyles, and healing. So for family members dealing with addictions especially, or violence, we can showcase, and I'm showcasing the healing-centered practices. So these healing-centered practices go into decolonizing addiction. Segments that I teach about from the Knowledge Keeper, even Len Pierre, who explains how addiction often stems from the loss of land and culture. Healing, therefore, must involve reconnection, and the power of the drum is the most direct way of that reconnection. And you just let it flow through the beat of the drum and speak your words of power, speak your intentions, speak your healing intentions. Again, onto my website or my other YouTube channels, you can learn more about that. But for most part, you can separate yourself, as I have through my drum practices. And those vibrations really re-entrain the brain, help to rebalance your way of thinking about life and your distractions to addictions, and refocus them back into how powerful you are as a human being and the importance of your existence, because we're all vibrational creatures. So traditional medicine is the next point, exploring the role of the tobacco traditions, sweat lodges, and in the Ojibwe language in treating trauma, PTSD, and substance abuse. It's not just the Ojibwe, but looking at all the different languages that we speak in different communities. And looking at, if you don't understand the true origins and the teachings of our English language, you'll see that it's not just our own traditional language that had spellcasting in it, but the English language is an amazing, complex spellcasting language. So do your research online. There's a lot about it online, and just looking at different words, even spelling, things like that. There's just things that you can think of or just look at that will speak to you about what Len Pierre and many other teachers speak of in knowledge keeping, because our addictions are connected to what we cover up, the damage, the trauma. Loss of your land and culture is a big empty void. So filling that back up with vibrations and inviting the ancestors to come back in to vibrate with you in your rebuilding and powering up into your new journey is so amazing. So traditional medicines, of course, speaking of the role of tobacco and sweat lodges, but I get caught up in these other areas, but looking at even treating that, again, the root, the trauma and the PTSD, it's vibrational therapy is becoming very popular, and even medical clinics around the world. And last but not least, we have the matriarchal guidance, and looking at the practices of the matriarchs through storytelling, ceremony, songs, and the old teachings that the last of these matriarch teachers who were blocked from all of this. The matriarchs have been the foundation of future generations and family. So that is the other area that we have to protect. We have to protect our elder matriarchs, because again, the women who birth children have the truest and the deepest connection to protecting children. So it's not just grandfathers that have gotten beyond their egos and are looking at how they can help to protect the grandchildren, but we look at what the old teachings of the matriarchs have been, and that the matriarchs foundationally teach from the deepest root, right into Mother Earth, right into the prana of the atmosphere, everything, all those teachings from the matriarchs. We have a lot of access to the teachings of matriarchs, but that is the other area that is so important that we have to bring into these kind of environments. And legally, you can also request the judge that you want to have a matriarch present to speak on behalf of your grandchild, or speak on behalf of you, and as well as other elders who have been your teachers or part of your grandchildren's upbringings and influences. So again, that's a really important area as far as the healing modalities and rebuilding of the family root system. So getting into number 5, the outcome, progressive healing for your grandchildren. So looking at what I'm doing with my websites and my YouTube channel, Vibe Up is my standard slogan for vibing up your mental system, your body, your mind, and your spirit. And looking at, we have to keep our vibrations high no matter what, because again, as soon as your vibes get low, as you know, you lose your focus. You get unhealthy. You get distracted. I get so distracted by having so many different things to learn at this time, especially through AI or in my art presentation. But Vibe Up is all about you vibing up, connecting into this point of identity as medicine. So when we show how a child's participation in drumming, dancing, and ceremony or naming ceremonies, it builds a cultural identity, because a lot of the past teachings and traditions are fading away, and we have to bring them back. We have to keep them alive. We have to keep our memories connected. So our cultural identity is, again, another powerful way, as I spoke of about the identity as medicine. So what is medicine? Well, medicine is something to make you feel better. Medicine is something that helps you through a connection to Mother Earth, or as we call it, Ma'ahalizach. And Mother Earth is supplying us with so much medicine, so much beautiful nutrients that help us to stay well and to stay vibrationally potent in our being. So we have so many different poisons that we're being fed, so many dead foods that we're consuming, that our bodies are not staying vibrantly healthy. So again, showing through the identity of medicine, showing how child's participation in the drumming and the dancing and all these other practices for ceremonies, you can develop your own original ceremonies and just connect them to what works for you if you're not connected to your tribal community. And so this connecting to your cultural identity acts as a buffer against future trauma or any negative activity ahead of you. So we'll get into that. I'm going to do a focused presentation on that, incorporating drumming and the teachings of ceremony. And again, we have to look at success stories. There are people who, before Bill C-92, did have some success. Not very many, because again, when it comes to grandparents in most cases don't have much money. They've been over-traumatized and dealing with all their own issues. It's very hard for grandparents to fight for their families or their grandchildren if they're not healthy and can't afford a lawyer, can't afford to do anything in support of the children, because a lot of times families will get broken up and they'll work against the grandparents, which is really sad, because again, if you have tribal trauma and you have family traumas, you have addictions that are rampant through the family, a lot of times most families will carry all of that trauma from so far back that they can't rise above it. So I want to offer you encouragement there, and please relate to my drumming programs so you can feel the vibe and start to bring in this new way of thinking about who you are and the power you have. Because again, now the communities are empowered through Bill C-92 and the children's passports. All these things, look into children's passports. I'll do another focused teaching on that, but right now I'm mentioning it. You can go online, even ask AI, ChatGPT, or Gemini. I use Gemini, which is so awesome. And ask, do your research. This is so important. Do your research. Because the children's passport is also great and powerful for being able to give your grandchildren and your children that connection to their community through this passport system. And a lot of times, and it doesn't matter, this is really important that you know as well, that if you're disconnected from your tribe or your nation, your original community, your band, off-reserve support is also foundational in Bill C-92, and you can get free lawyers, you can get information and guidance from these law societies for Indigenous people. So we're in a time where we have a lot more capabilities and a lot more tools available to us. So focusing on the success stories again, families who have transitioned from isolation and abuse to a life rooted in tribal traditions and showing the tangible results of strong grandparental support is what we will also want to be focusing on. And I'm going to feature stories as well that will speak of those victories that grandparents have had, and then showing the long-term application of trying to be a support network for parents who are dealing with drug and alcohol and violence addictions. Because we want this family unit to come back to being strong, to rebuild above. I keep going back to the colonial program, but that's just the way it is. It is what it is because we've been brought into the system and we've adapted to it, whether it's through the religious programs that are not of our origins, somebody else's teachings from another book. We have our own teachings. We do have access to a lot of different tribal teachings, so we don't have to fall into the dependency of the religious program. Practicing our own traditions and our songs and our stories, keeping them alive, shows through time has shown a lot better results than some of the religious teachings that are out there. So again, looking at say recommended resources for your research, would offer this teaching of A Circle of Healing for Native Children Endangered by Drugs, and that's alcohol as well. And that is a video series illustrating cultural practices that successfully heal communities. And also relating that to what's online on the government Child and Family Services website. You have to check it out. They have videos on there for Indigenous and non-Indigenous families going through divorce, separations, and offers. The Indigenous program is just so powerful, and I'm going to do a video on that as well. But it shows the whole tribal system and the elders' involvement in the community, supporting families that are going through challenging situations with themselves and their children. Bill C-92, another resource. The good, the bad, the unknowns. This provides a breakdown of the legal challenges and the opportunities within Bill C-92, that act. So check that out. Get educated. It's really important. Just become proactive for your little innocent grandchildren. They are worth it. No regrets. Let's just do what we know how to do now because we have that information. We have the tools. We have the knowledge. Let's do it. Waiwa. Vibe up. So the power of drumming, coming into the final point of this presentation, features the knowledge keeper Adrian Goulet. I want to speak about him explaining the protocol and healing nature of the drum, which is what I teach in my drumming. Whether I'm doing classroom presentations for children or whether I'm doing community presentations or Indigenous presentations on reserves and in different communities, the power of drumming is a part of every nation's root system of their origins, their practices, their traditions. And online there's numerous other drum teachers as well that you can relate to that teach you how healthy, how powerful the drum vibrations are for all aspects of mental and physical wellness, and spiritual for sure. So thanks for listening, and vibe up. Keep vibing up. Keep strong in everything that you're intending to do. And look at the power of the drum. If you don't have a drum, I can sell you a drum. Or we can go on the gifting program. You can request a gift of a drum. Or we can do drum making presentations in your community. So contact me at ravendrumming@gmail.com if you want to put in a request for a donated drum, and then we will also incorporate or gift a drumstick. But if you want to purchase your own drums as well, that would be great, because it goes into our support system. And if you want to donate to purchasing a number of drums for the communities as well on a corporate level, or do a fundraising program, we can do drum making programs in your community on Vancouver Island. Deutschen, Nithwan.
Feel the drum beats rise from the soil below. Ancient memories call where the rivers flow. Feet touch Mother Earth.